We're going to do something a little different today. If you've been listening for a while, you know I get into the numbers. I'm a stat nerd. That's the whole brand. Northside Numbers Game. I mean, come on, it's right there in the title. But I've always said the stats are in service of the story. The numbers are how I explain what we're seeing. They're not the point. The game is the point. The game is always the point. Every once in a while, the algorithms do something right and put something in front of you that just clicks. For me, that was a page called Brooke Knows Ball. Showed up in my feed last year. First, it was the advanced stats, these new metrics I'd never seen, presented just like OPS Plus or any other normalized number you'd pull off Fangraphs. And I thought, oh, these are my people. But the more I watched, the more I realized there was something sneaky going on underneath it. Because the stats weren't really about optimizing the modern game. They were a Trojan horse. What they were actually doing was using the language of modern analytics to argue for the game we used to have. The game we used to love, the 80s, the 90s, small ball, balls in play, variety, weird batting stances, guys who didn't all look the same. And that's the idea I haven't been able to shake. So I reached out, and today I'm joined by the two people behind Brooke Knows Ball, the account you've likely seen on TikTok or Instagram, maybe on YouTube. If you've seen the content, you already know Brooke. She's the voice and the on-screen presence and has a real gift for storytelling and finding the human threads. You probably haven't met Joel, but he's the baseball historian and stat nerd of the operation. The guy reconsidering war from the steroid era and going down every rabbit hole baseball has to offer. Together, they're building something that's part analytics, part history, part documentary, and entirely a love letter to baseball. Now, full disclosure, and you may hear it, we had a little technical adventure at the top of this recording. My mic decided right as we got rolling to switch from the good boom mic to my headset. I had no idea until Brooke and Joel were politely telling me they couldn't hear a word I was saying. So if you catch a butterfly making a cameo or me sounding slightly different for a second there, that's the behind the scenes magic of an independent podcast. We got to sort it out. Brooke got to enjoy a latte while I figured it out. Everybody wins. This is a great conversation. We talk about the stats they're building and what they're really trying to measure. We talk about 3 true outcome baseball and what it's cost the game, where Ian Happ and Nico Horner fit into the story, and finally, the documentary work they're doing in the Dominican Republic, which is some genuinely moving stuff. So yeah, Brooke Knows Ball. Hello, welcome to CubsPS Plus, the Northside Numbers Game, a sometimes podcast that dives headfirst into the analysis of hot topics driving Chicago Cubs baseball. I'm your host, Mike Waller, a lifelong Cub fan, full-time baseball stat nerd, and sometime youth baseball coach. CubsPS Plus is part of the Bleacher Bunch Productions on the Fans First Sports Network, an exciting group of shows including the Bleacher Bunch, the Daily Cubs Pod, the Sun Ranto Show, Cup of Cubby Blue, Baseball Rabbit Hole, and Bricks Behind the Ivy. The Bleacher Bunch feed is available wherever it is you get your podcasts, and CubsPS Plus is always available ad-free to Patreon supporters at patreon.com/bleacherbunch, where you can support the show and find a variety of benefits starting for as little as $1 a month. In addition to the podcast feeds, you can also find me on Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube, all at CubsPS Plus, a spin on the baseball metric OPS Plus. Love the pod or hate it, please drop a review wherever it is you find your podcasts. If you've done that, thank you so much. Maybe you can share this episode with a friend. All of the Bleacher Bunch shows are brought to you by our wonderful Patreon supporters. I also want to give a shout out to the Fanarchy app, a cool new baseball social media tool with a steady stream of new features, such as scanning pictures from your phone to log games you attended, and you can tag others. That's helping keep the Bleacher Bunch shows going. There's an extensive database to look up past games and great message boards. Find us over there. Also want to give a big shout out to Matt Camero's Permanent Paintings and Penguin Imprints. Are you ready? I'm ready. Here we go. Welcome into episode 117 of the CubsPS Plus podcast. This week I've got a special guest, 2 special guests actually, the partnership behind Brooke Knows Ball. Brooke and Joel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, really happy to be here.
This is great. So Brooke, you started this feed, 2 years ago?
Less than that. Actually, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary. It's August 2025 is when we had started our Brooke Knows Ball channel. And to give a little bit more context on my partner, Joel, so we know who I am. I'm Brooke. But a lot of people don't know who Joel is. He's the behind-the-scenes guy. We're a dynamic duo, so we work on everything together, and he's taught me everything that I know about baseball as well.
That's great.
That's right.
So you've got an interesting backstory on this. Let's talk about where the idea for the feed even came from.
I'll let you go for it.
Sure. Yeah, we started this page about a year ago because we were trying to push kind of a television series in the space for baseball. There hadn't been very much narrative going on in baseball since 2012. It's been like a really, really quiet time for baseball movies or TV shows. So we were trying to pitch one to Hollywood, and Hollywood is pretty tough when it comes to producers and what they're willing to invest in and what they want to be a part of. And it was a situation where we wanted Brooke to be the lead. Pushing a show like that without kind of established credits is a tough thing to do. So we just said, you know what? We're not going to do it the way that Hollywood wants to do it. We're going to go establish a name, a brand, a style, a tone, hopefully a level of intelligence behind the page to kind of like build up a fan base and then move from kind of a place of strength as opposed to kind of reaching out with your hands out asking for something from the Hollywood system. So we started there. The page had an instant response. People seemed to like it from the very, very beginning. There was really never any kind of slow buildup or anything like that. And then we've just kind of been finding ourselves over the last year, whether it's statistical content, historical content, the way that the game should be played. We don't really do the hot takes or, like gambling content or anything like that. We try to keep it family friendly as possible. And we try to keep our content more league wide, more international even, and not try to like stick to one certain fan base because we want everybody to be able to come here and talk baseball beyond your affiliation.
Oh, I think you're on mute right now.
Oh.
No, we don't hear you. It's whenever you want some technology to work is when it doesn't work. But we can't. No, we still can't hear you.
Still quiet.
It's okay. We cannot hear you yet. It gives me time to sip a latte.
Oh, butterfly. They're going to be everywhere.
Well, that's awesome.
What, butterflies are?
Yeah.
You're good for that?
I'm good for that. No caterpillars, but we're here for the butterflies.
Can you hear me now?
Now
yes, we can.
You get right in the middle of recording, it's switched to my headset mic, not the boom mic that I'm working on. Of course, it's going to do something stupid.
Yeah, of course.
So I was starting to say, thank you for the recap. And when I first saw the page, it was the advanced stats. And so my podcast is not hardcore numbers. It's really more of a narrative storytelling, but I do take the stats angle and try to explain why we're seeing what we're seeing, at least the way I see it. And so that was kind of a novelty, and it's been fun to watch over the years, or over the last year, watching more of the narrative pop up. Because before, did you started with the stats, right? Or is that just what my algorithm was feeding?
You know what? The first video that we ever posted was if I were to be a GM for Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that was our first video. But we did, so the reason why the stats kind of have gotten incorporated as much as they have into the page is because it relates back to that TV series. And what we had wanted to do with this TV series is have this duality between fiction and reality and almost have new introduced stats through the TV series that could then inform actual professional teams or even, little league teams, anyone, and to help them improve their game. So since the TV series, that's our ultimate goal, but we're pushing it really through our Brooke Knows Ball channel. That's why we started incorporating the stats. Those are a couple stats that we've introduced through the channel, but we have a lot more. And I think we did it a little bit early on.
Very early on.
Stats, right? Yeah. So
I also never know what the algorithm is just feeding me when it feeds me. So
sometimes we even are wondering too. So, but yeah, we've introduced a number of them so far, and it's really to bring back that small ball approach to the game. Quantifying the feel of 80s, 90s, the classic baseball approach, having more balls in play. That's what our stats are trying to accomplish, is helping some of these players from the past that feel like they're like, I feel like my WAR does not equate to what I was as a player. That's why these stats are there, is to say, no, you were as good or even better of a player than you thought you were. And these are the stats to help you understand why or how. And even for modern day players too.
Yeah, like I'll drop a name, like, because we're talking to some players right now who are really interested in it, and some organizations as well. And so, for example, a player, we use Kenny Lofton as a good example, because Kenny Lofton played his entire career in the steroid era,
Yes,
right?
he did.
So his entire career was in the steroid era. So the way that WAR is calculated is you're judged against your peers. So if you're playing in a playing field that isn't level, but you're clean, then the WAR can't actually ever be truly accurate, because
That's a good point.
if I'm playing here clean and I'm putting up a 65 WAR over my career and it's all in the steroid era, there's a good chance that 10 to 15% of your WAR production has been suppressed because the guys that you're up against are juicing and they're upping their WAR 2 times, right?
It's probably a
Doubling their.
conservative
Yeah,
amount
it's
too.
probably a
Yeah.
conservative amount, truly.
Yeah.
So when you see a guy like a Kenny Lofton who's like a 65, 66 WAR, you realize it's probably closer to an 80. You look at a Ken Griffey Jr. who's an 80 WAR, he's probably closer to 100 in a level playing field, right? So that's just one of many kind of
Thought processes
and yeah,
behind the stats.
and some opposition that we put up against kind of some of the modern metrics, because most of them are really great and informative, but then some like that where if all the values aren't completely even across the board and you have something that is drastically affecting certain numbers, then you can't get an accurate portrayal of what a player is, because that's what WAR is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a singular number that represents a player's value. Well, if that's inaccurate, then you've got a generation of players who've been improperly measured and are vastly underrated.
Yeah, and now I think in the last CBA, they're putting some players' compensation tied to it. That goes into arbitration hearings and things like that. So we do want those numbers to be right.
Yeah. And that's something like with the stats too, is that we try to give players tools so that way they can properly negotiate for themselves when it comes to their arbitration, because there are some I think we're leaning a little bit away from this now, but back in the 80s, 90s, even 2000s, you would have a more variety of players on the field versus the 3 true outcome hitter that we now see today. And so the stats are really there to say you have more tools in your belt than just WAR or OPS or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just gives them a little bit more to argue for.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it's funny because the stats kind of come off as, I mean, you present them the same way people present OPS plus, and all the normalized numbers. But it's actually kind of a trap, because you do throw it back. You're really highlighting what the game was in the 80s and 90s. And I think that's a cool concept there.
I think that's the goal, is to use the modern day values and like, because you can't use batting average or RBIs to try to make an argument anymore. That's like yelling at clouds type information, right? Like they're not going to give you any respect for that type of stuff. So you have to kind of use the values that have been proposed over the last 20, 25 years, stay within the system that's been established, but then kind of revert the thought process back to the way that the game used to be played to showcase other skill sets. And we've noticed a really, really big response in that, and players and general managers and front offices being like, oh, this seems far more indicative of where value should be placed as opposed to OPS, which we think is an incredibly inconsistent way of valuing whether a hitter is talented or not.
I mean, I use it all the time because it's what's out there, but
yeah,
it is inconsistent. And you get the player that, one guy I like to go to a lot is Ian Happ. Within the Cubs fan base, you either love him or you hate him. And he's by every modern metric, he's an above average player. I mean, he's top. He's going to probably end this season top 10 in Cubs franchise home runs. I mean, it's not like he's a bum, but he is kind of that classic 3 true outcome hitter. He doesn't hit for a big batting average. He strikes out a lot. Will hit this year. He's on pace for more than 30 home runs. But it's that's the player, and you can kind of get somebody's overall attitude based on how they respond to a player like him. Versus like there's Pete Crow Armstrong, who's just kind of setting fire to everything all over the field. He's got some of the 3 true outcome too, but he does it in a much more fun way. But like Nico Horner, he's more like your classic 80s 2-hitter.
Hmm. Absolutely. Perfect example. And I think what you're seeing from the Cubs, at least when they're successful, is they've got a nice mixture
Hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
their offensive approach, right? Like you don't have a bunch of three true outcomes guys, which you see on a lot of teams. And like, I use the Yankees a lot as an
I
example
was
over the
just
last
thinking that.
15, 17 years of how they have a lot of big OPS guys, but they're so boomer bust, right? Like they will destroy a below 500 teams fourth starter. They'll put 15
Yes.
runs on the board. But when that ace comes along, when it's postseason time, when it's you're up against somebody dynamic every single night and a great team and a good defense, that boomer bust approach just evaporates and it's not nearly as consistent. The reliance on winning over 162 games is very different than going in the postseason and having to win every single night with an approach, right? So
Yeah. Well, and baseball is so streak oriented. Like things fluctuate, and you look at a playoff series. Look at any time during the season. Like as awful as the White Sox and Rockies have been the last few years, they still have stretches where they'll go win 7 out of 10.
mm-hmm.
Hmm. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So you can't
one thing.
rely on something like that when it comes to the postseason because, well, for three true outcomes, right? Your strikeouts go up, your walks
Mm-hmm.
decrease, and
Your power falls away. Yeah,
exactly.
in
So
postseason time.
If you're
having
playing up
players like
north,
that, go ahead.
I was gonna say if you're playing up north, the ball doesn't travel either. So
Yeah,
even if
That's
you're
where
getting
we
it,
are.
is like,
it's not going to
yeah,
carry as much. Yeah.
exactly. So it's just having that mindset of like it's okay to have that player, but don't make your entire team three true outcome hitters because when it comes time for the postseason, they're not likely to perform as well as you would think.
Yeah. So where do you see yourselves going with this? Here, you trying to work on another evolution of this?
As far as the page as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes into a couple different buckets. When it comes to the statistics and what we're doing on that side of things, we are trying to, of course, we want to get them adopted as a more like league wide stat that is used
Yeah.
consistently without teams and players. And we're starting to do that, I think, with some of the retired players and their Hall of Fame advocacy. But as the page of a whole, as a whole, we're very focused on narrative and storytelling. Joel's background is in screenwriting. I was in the entertainment space for a couple years as well, and so we want to be able to make movies. We want to be able to make TV shows. We're working currently on a docu-series right now that season 1 is in the Dominican Republic, talking about baseball and culture and identity in the Dominican and how all three of those combine to create these outstanding players that make up, what is it, like 10%
Yeah, I think
of MLB
at
right
its
now?
peak last year, I think it was 18% of the majors
Wow.
was
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dominican players.
From a
Out of
tiny country.
Yeah,
out of a
10
country
million
with
people.
10 million people,
Yeah.
exactly. So, that's season 1. Season 2, we're aiming for Japan, and then making it a global docu-series where we go to different countries every single season and showcase what baseball is like for that country, and then how
Mm-hmm.
we are able to get those types of players and we see them coming into MLB, performing and becoming these superstars. So, really ultimately our goal with the page is to do long form narrative type of content, whether it be documentaries, TV series, movies, and beyond, and then use those stats too as more of like a grounds of credibility and to be able to help change the game in a more positive way.
Yeah. So how's the outreach been when you guys have reached out to try to start doing this series in Dominican Republic?
We already filmed it, so it's a
Oh, you're
10
done. Okay.
episode. Yeah, we're done. We're in the post production process, so it's just a lot of editing right now, which is it's
Mm-hmm.
not the glamorous part.
No,
But we
definitely not.
spent a month in the Dominican earlier this year, between January and March, and we started grassroots going to their youth academies like the Manny Mota Foundation, where kids can just play and learn to love the game of baseball. And then we went to MLB academies like Dodgers. We were there for their international signing day. And then we went to Orioles, Braves, Marlins, of course, and a couple Cardinals. I like blank on them sometimes.
There's so many. Yeah, they
So
just randomly teams just reached out to us while we were there. There was no planning
yeah.
in any
Oh,
way,
that's great.
shape, or form. We had a 2-week window to come down and start this thing. It was middle of December. Some winter ball teams had invited us to come out to the DR. We're like, we don't have a story, like, so we just figured, let's go turn the cameras on and be a fly on the wall to what the experience is like. And naturally, stories just were there every single time you pressed record. Just it was an amazing experience.
All the way up to the World Baseball Classic. Yeah. So and then I got to go to Miami and see Team Dominican play at in WBC, and they I think we were a little bit biased, of course, because we spent so much time with them for a month. But I think if remove the biasy, so many people were reaching out and saying, oh my gosh, Team Dominican this year is so much fun. They're just alive and passionate, which really showcases what they were like back when we were following them throughout the Dominican, and the stories of the individuals there up to the professional players and beyond. So that's really what the series is about. It's figuring out what baseball identity each country has and how those players are raised, and then how they come into the States and become MLB players, and looking at what that process is like, and how that's, you know, if MLB is this melting pot of players, let's go to where they originated from. So that's season 1 is in the Dominican. We're working on it right now. It's a 10-episode series, 22 to 25 minutes per episode. And then season 2 will be in Japan, where we follow their youth players into their Koshien tournament, which you can explain a little bit about, into NPB and beyond there too. So, yeah, it's a crazy process, but it's been so rewarding to be able to learn about baseball internationally and globally, as opposed to just focusing on one specific team or league.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. So World Baseball Classic, you know, there's such different cultures watching the teams play, and it's, and then now with the World Cup going on, like I was watching Cubs and Mets yesterday, and Norwegians took over right center. And they were just chanting their soccer chants the entire game. It was great.
Wow.
But it's a reminder that I think sometimes here we get so caught up in the stats, and I'm as guilty as anybody. It becomes very much a quiet, staid, stoic, don't show emotion kind of game. And it's fun when the flavor gets injected.
Yes.
There's everything. When we went to the Dominican, you realize that these kids, they actually play, and they get scouted from almost like a Sandlot style version of the game, where there's no two teams playing against each other. It's just a bunch of kids on a field rotating positions, and everybody's
cheering for everyone.
Everyone cheers for everyone. So like when you see them all kind of come together to play on the Dominican national team, these kids have all been friends their entire lives, and it's not like some, oh God, I had this rivalry with this guy in collegiate ball, and we don't like each other, and now we have to play on Team USA or something. It's not like that. They just don't play a team version of the game. It's just this love affair version that they play, and then when they get signed internationally, they have to come to the academies, and for the first 2, they have something called the DSL, which is Dominican Summer League, and that's where the prospects first start playing with a professional organization, and they're learning how to play fundamental professional baseball, because maybe they don't know the cutoffs so well, maybe they don't know these elements, but the sheer athleticism and skill set has been, the throwing is incredible, the running is incredible, the hitting is incredible. So now it's just taking that and molding it into a form that it becomes a professional baseball player. But it's really interesting because there's no stats. They don't keep track of stats. They don't.
Yeah.
There's no.
Even when they're young.
But somehow they know who's good, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's so funny that you say that too, is because when we were at the Manny Mota Foundation, and they had kids as young as 7 years old all the way up to 17-year-olds there, or maybe a little bit younger
15,
than that.
let's say 15.
Say. And they're doing the Soto Shuffle. This kid,
7-year-old kid in the box is doing the Soto Shuffle.
Yeah, he got, there's a pitch that got thrown at his head, and he's just he backs up and he does this little shuffle thing, and we're just, it's so interesting how these kids are so informed by these players, and they just they're sponges. They would just want to be that player and that huge star, and to be a baseball athlete, like a professional athlete in the Dominican, is to be the biggest celebrity in the States. It's like we have movie stars, we have singers, we have all this variety out here, of course, athletes. But in the Dominican, if you're a celebrity, it's because you're a baseball player. It is just, it's so fascinating. Everywhere you go, they've got ball caps on.
It feels like Babe Ruth probably felt in the 1920s and 30s, where
probably
they're just it feels like a time machine in a way, because it's everywhere. You just go and every single baseball field has somebody playing on it, and it's just like this feels the way probably baseball felt in the 1930s and 40s and 20s, when it was just so ingrained in the American culture.
Well, and just hearing you guys talk about that, it takes me back when I was a kid. So I coach a lot of youth baseball now, like 15, 16-year-olds for the most part. And back when I played, all the prominent players that had the weird batting stances, like we could do them all because we did them all playing wiffle ball and playing out on the sand lots. And I see today, like the kids have more access to coaching than they've ever had before, especially in Charlotte. It's a warmer weather city. A lot of former players are just around here. But I can tell the kids who have played a lot in the backyard versus the kids who take a lot of lessons. Like it's, there's
something robotic.
It's a different feel, and it's, and it kind of takes the character out. And I don't see kids doing like the Soto shuffle or trying to be Aaron Judge at the plate.
Right.
Like I think
Craig
when I was growing
Counsell.
up, yes,
With the hands up here.
I think I could throw my back out doing Craig Counsell. But I remember, I don't know if you're old enough to remember Luis Pujols. He played for the Astros, and he had this very upright stance, and he basically, as I remember, I think he stood on one leg basically, or he had this giant, like, raise his knee up as he came through, and that was when we always had fun trying to figure out.
I always dropped Tony Batista.
Oh, that's a good one.
With the big open stance, aiming the bat at the pitcher and then coiling.
I would love to start seeing pictures like Juan Marichal pop back up with his leg that just flies up to the sky. I don't know how he did that. I need to learn his stretching routine because he's like the biggest icon out there right now. And like I was jokingly doing the stance, and then like little kids come up to me and they're like, "You're doing it wrong." And then he's like showing me, and he doesn't. The little kid that's talking to me doesn't speak English. I don't speak Spanish, but he saw what I was doing and he was completely coaching me into how to properly do
that's great.
The stance. It was awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah, I would love for people to see more of that. And it's interesting timing too, because if you guys have seen some of the early CBA negotiation things, having an international draft is a big part of what the owners are putting forward, which I could take it or leave it. I've got some feelings both directions, but I don't always love how, they make handshake deals with these kids at 12 years old. And then if they, it's great if they're Juan Soto or they're, a player that comes all the way through, but you go hurt your arm at 14, they're done with you.
Yeah. So we actually got to meet a Biscone, which is these, I think they consider themselves like agents, but they are trainers where they'll go and they'll have a bunch of kids in the Dominican. They'll bring them to the right places to get scouted, but in return, you're supposed to give them a huge percentage of your contract.
Your future earnings.
Of your future earnings and all future earnings. And there's obviously some legal cases that just recently happened around that. But that, or like what you're talking about, these handshake deals, these verbal agreements where you'll have somebody say to a kid, "Hey, in 4 years, I'm going to sign you for $2 million. And the family, this is a impoverished country. So the family is like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." Then they'll have a loan shark come to them and say, "Hey, you can wait the 4 years for that $2 million, or I can give you $200,000 right now. You'll just have to make sure that you pay me back with interest."
You give me 50% of that $2 million,
right?
In 4 years. That's like what it is. I'll give you $200,000 now. You can buy a house. You can get proper. You'll have food, and you'll be able to train your kid properly, which puts them in a good place to get that $2 million eventually. But like you said,
if some injury happens, if somehow they plateau, if there's something, or maybe they just, the organization changes their mind. Now this family is sitting there having to owe $200,000. Well, really $1 million to a loan shark. So I think Joel and I are proponents of the international draft because of some of the things that we experienced down there. with those kids, and just having something that gives them a little bit more security.
It's a very complicated issue though,
Yeah,
because
it is.
It really is.
How do you do it out of Japan? Like all of these things are going to have to come together. Do you have a international Latin draft? Do you have an international Pacific Rim draft? Do you have
all fall
a
under the same
European
umbrella,
one?
or...
Like how do you break it up? Because the way that the system works is we sign them for 16 in Latin America. Is that you can't apply that to Japan? You can't apply that to the United States. So it needs to happen, but it's a very complicated thing that's really going to need to be ironed out. I think it's more of to put it into the CBA this year and try to implement it. It's too soon. We want it to happen, but we want it to happen right, and to try to implement it off of like a first draft concept of what this would look like, I don't think is going to work out.
Yeah.
So you need to really.
The problem too is like if you implement it too soon and all of the holes start showing, then you ruin the opportunity for it to be properly implemented in the future, because now people are going to say, well, that happened when you tried implementing it, so we're not even going to bother this time. So it's like you want to make sure that you have like that your boat can float without all these holes in it. Otherwise, you're going to probably start sinking sooner than you'll stay afloat.
Yeah, and it's a situation where right now where like $500 million a year goes into just the Dominican from MLB. $500 million a year. It's a staggering amount of money that goes into a country of 10 million people, and that number is probably going to jump to 750 million in the next 3 years when the international draft pool, the allotment of money that teams get, goes up. Because I would say that 80% of the money that they spend from their international signings is in the Dominican. We're in the Dodgers organization. It was the 6 kids that they had that they were signing that weren't 10, because you can sign as many as you want for $10,000, right? You can sign 50 kids for $10,000, but then there's an allotment, which I think is 6.5 million per season that you can spend internationally, right? So out of the 5-6 kids that they signed, one was Venezuelan and the other 5 were Dominican.
Well, they had one other that might not have been Dominican, but it was like 4 or 5 out of the 6 were Dominican.
So much money, and then they're going to up that pool amount, I think, to 8 or 9 million in the next 2 or 3 years. So money just keeps going down there and to Latin countries. So they need to really.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I just hate how scummy the business is sometimes.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Well, and like you mentioned Japan, I mean, there's just so many different tiers. Like a 16-year-old from the Dominican Republic is very different than getting a guy who's played 4 years professionally in the NPB.
Exactly. Yeah.
And even there's a difference between, somebody who's a more established guy coming over, and like Roki Sasaki, who was still young for Japan's measures. So yeah, it is very hard to come up with a draft that's going to cover all those scenarios.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be many revisions before something feels close to being right.
They're still tweaking the MLB draft, the North American one. So
yeah, I mean, we don't expect perfection out of the gate by any means, but yeah, just like taking the time and consideration to factor in all of the nuances. There's just so many of them, so I don't expect it to truly come to fruition this year. I would be surprised if it really did go through, but
it would just be a lot better if 30-40% of the money that went down there for signings wasn't going to corrupt practices, right? If that could be cleaned up, that's pretty much the most important thing for us to start.
Yeah, for sure. So did that kind of discussion about the young players come up a lot in your documentary series?
So we actually got to go all the way up to the commissioner's office in the Dominican, and we spoke with him for an hour. So there's a lot of that conversation is included in the series. But then we also spoke with some of the other employees that are at his office. What was really interesting is that PEDs came up, and we weren't trying to we had an opportunity earlier on to go out to the Dominican with a production company, but we had to talk about like Emmanuel Classe and gambling. We had to talk about steroids, those types of things that we were like, that's not really the type of brand that we have for ourselves. We're more family friendly.
We're okay to talk about it, but we don't want it to be
like an expose.
Right.
Yeah.
And the commissioner's office just brought it forward to us. And they were saying, look, we understand that education is a problem within this country in that we have, and it sometimes is tied to those verbal agreements, right? But we'll have kids at age 12 drop out of school because their sole focus is to play baseball and then get drafted. But the percentage of people that actually get drafted is like 0.1%. It's very, very small compared to the amount of people that actually drop out of school. So they're like, that's an issue that we have. And then they were talking about PEDs and how and it ties to the lack of education too, but because they're so focused on wanting to do their best so that they can get drafted, the medical side of it gets a little bit overlooked. And not because it's not the kid's fault though, because they're getting told we're giving you a vitamin to help your arm pain. And we actually met a kid who was told that. I say kid, he's not a kid. He's in his
he was when he
was when this had happened to him. And he had been told by his trainer, I'm going to give you a vitamin because he was having arm pain because he's a pitcher. So I'll give you a vitamin and it'll help. So he gave him an injection. They hit the wrong, like he said, no, that's not where the pain is. It's back here. So then he gave him another injection.
With the same needle.
With the same needle. Didn't wash it. Didn't sterilize it, anything. Nicks an artery. He ends up getting bacterial blood poisoning and almost loses his arm entirely. Then he shows us his arm. And it looks like it got bit by a shark. There's these like lines across it, like scarring. And he had said at one point that there was like, during the healing process, that it almost looked like scaling. And so I asked him, I was like, oh, is that like a result of the healing process? And he said, no, they stapled the bandages to my arm. That was how they like adhered the bandages.
Whoa.
So he's explaining this to us and saying, I appreciate you guys being here because this gives me a platform to explain what the scenarios can be like out here. And it's really due to a lack of education for kids, for parents, and people in the medical field. And I want to be able to shed light on this because this is, obviously this is something that he could have died from. He was in the ICU for a week, I want to say. It was just, and
another kid had died 3 months previous.
Yeah. So to answer your question of like, do we go through the youth and talking about both the positives and the things that need to be improved? Yes, it does go throughout the series. And there's some topics that are heavier like that, but it's more of just like, this is us spreading awareness and education behind certain things that, like what we're saying, is very nuanced. And then there's the other times where we just get to hang out with kids and play baseball and just enjoy the game. So it's really just to showcase, like, there is never usually a black and white scenario. There's a lot of gray in between things, and you can have so much joy and not have a lot and still be able to find that passion for the game.
And we try to remove the judgment from the experience. We don't feel like we have the right to go there and say, oh, this needs to change. You need to fix this, because this is a third world country. Like they're doing, and the commissioner's office is they're accrediting their academies now. They're going and like getting the academies to come to them to kind of go through a testing process to see if everything is kosher with how they do things. And you see that they address their problems, but we didn't want to go there and pretend like we had the answers to their issues. We just wanted to talk to them, have the issues be brought up naturally, which they were. And then, one day we're doing that. The next day we're with Carlos Pena because he's a GM for the Escogidos, who ended up winning the championship. We were hanging out with him. We were hanging out with
Dale Murphy.
Dale Murphy for a week. He has a charity down there where he goes and rebuilds baseball fields for the kids and brings them educational equipment. And he's been doing that without publicity probably for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around that.
Yeah, just so it was very much just go, turn the cameras on, experience things, don't judge it, and just let things naturally happen, fly on the wall. And it was really great. And I think that that's kind of the style that we want to do moving forward to these other countries is we want to go to Japan, but we don't want to pretend like we know anything. We just want it all to come to us naturally. And it's a really fulfilling circumstance.
And fans don't get to see that. I mean, we get little snippets. Some of the players have told their stories, or you'll mention the lawsuit. You'll hear about a lawsuit or something in the news and get a slice of it. But to actually see it and immerse in it, It'd be fascinating to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. That makes us happy to hear.
So you have
Joel
at
and
least
I
one
are, of
watcher.
course, endlessly curious about it, but it's always
Yes.
nice to hear that someone else is like, oh, that's actually what I want to see too.
Yeah.
We have a pilot episode that's been made, and we've been sharing it within like people in our circle just to get feedback for it, and so we've gotten a lot of positive feedback for it.
Good.
But I'm it's like it's your baby, so of course you think that it's the most beautiful, wonderful thing in the world. But I do feel like it's one of those stories that we really get to tell it authentically and ask questions as if we're part of the audience, right? Because going into it, I didn't know really anything about Dominican Winter League because I was so focused on MLB and just baseball in the US that going to another country and experiencing it, it was like, of course, there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences too. And it's like, okay, like we went with a former player, Orestes Estrada, and he had actually, he played with the Marlins their inaugural year. He was drafted with the Yankees, but then he also played in the Dominican Winter League when he was young, and then he was a broadcaster for a long time for Tampa. And he had to just sit there and explain to me, no, Brooke, this stadium is played by two different teams, and the commissioner's office is also located at the stadium. So you can't say it's the Licey Stadium. You can't say it's Escogido Stadium because both of those teams will get very offended. You have to say it's Quisqueya. It's the stadium that they both play in, and the commissioner is also there. And I'm just sitting there like, okay. And then Joel goes like, oh, it's like the Polo Grounds. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting this now. But I think that's good because it's like, as the audience, who would know that coming into it? You need that explanation to see like, wait, isn't that the same place? Like they're at the commissioner's office, but that looks like the exact same place they were at yesterday, which was for an Escogido game. So, it's just, we wanted people to be able to experience it in the way that we were. So Fly on the Wall is a really good explanation.
Yeah, that's wild. What's your both of you what's your background with baseball? I mean, clearly there's a lot of passion between this project and what's on the feed. I mean, there's clearly passion there. So, like, where did you guys come to baseball from?
I grew up in California, so I was always around a baseball team, no matter what direction I drove in. But closest to Angels Stadium, so I went to a lot of Angels games, and it always helps that they're very affordable too. I love that stadium; it's great. But and then of course I lived in LA for a bit, so I was going to plenty of Dodgers games, and then driving distance from Padres, and so mine was very casual growing up as a fan experience. I didn't play softball; most people assume that I did, but I just had like a casual fan experience growing up. It wasn't until I met Joel that. And he'll explain his background, but he is like a baseball historian and statistician. And so when he would talk to me about stories of players from the past and like the greatest game ever pitched, is one of the videos that we did. I was like, wow, there's so many nuances to this game that I didn't quite realize growing up. And then watching some Ken Burns documentaries and seeing all of the history and how it's like also very informative of the country at the how America was growing, so was the game of baseball, and how like a lot of different historical issues were in baseball and vice versa. And so that was really when I started getting interested in it to the level that we are now. And I'll let you explain your background on how you got interested in baseball and everything.
Baseball's always just for sports has been the one that I've just absolutely adored since youth.
Which is ironic because he's Canadian, and so most people just assume, well, you must be like all in for hockey, and that's like the one thing that you focus on.
Yeah, it's like, don't get me wrong, I love hockey, but there's just this is not a shot on hockey, but it feels like I got to a point with hockey where I'm like, oh, I get it, but with baseball, you never fully get it. There's just always something else to learn. It's chess to me, of like learning the moves and the history, and everything is so beautifully entwined that you're not just learning a game, you're learning American history, you're learning math, you're learning social issues, political issues. Like everything is interestingly on display. It's such a microcosm of life. So I've just always loved the sport. And then screenwriting, I had written a bunch of scripts that were kind of escapism, like as in like I hadn't really had the life experience in the scripts that I was writing, because it was, they were action movies or thrillers or something like that, and I'm like, I've never lived this life. And then I was like,
probably for the best if it was
yeah,
a thriller.
very true. Yeah. And then
Yes.
so I was like, they always say write what you know. So I wrote a baseball script about a decade ago, and I really realized that I'm like, oh wow, I know the characters, I know the dynamics that I want, I know the metaphors that I want to tap into. So I felt really, and that was a script for Tommy John, which I actually got the story rights for. So that really
cool.
started me kind of on my path to writing a lot of baseball stuff. And then I got involved with a cheating scandal about 5 years ago with foreign substance. So I had made another social media page that kind of had exposed some guys who were using foreign substance in the past, and that ended up.
Is that the Spider Tack era?
Yeah, that ended up blowing up. Like I did like 160 million views in 11 weeks.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, every single video that I made, 2,000, 5,000 fans would tag MLB in it. Every single video I made, to be like, if he notices this and he's pointing this out and it's cut and dry, why aren't you doing anything about it? And within 11 weeks, the foreign substance checks kind of came around. So, I was like, that got me involved in it, but it was also very polarizing. It wasn't, a lot of people's fantasy teams got drastically affected, so they weren't a fan. Some people were. People were like, thank you, the game's clean, the offense is back. We're not seeing 17 strikeouts a game every single game. Yes. And but some people were like, oh, my starting pitcher, he's not doing so good anymore, and he was leading my fantasy team, and I want you dead. And I'm like, well, that's a little.
When he says that too, he's not even joking. There were people.
Oh, I totally believe it.
That's just because of that, and it's.
I've seen Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, but so when we decided to start Brooke Knows Ball, we wanted it to be something that was very family friendly. That because when the foreign substance stuff happened, his intention was never for it to be a controversial thing. He was just like, I see an issue in the game and I want to see it cleaned up because, well, first of all, the game became a lot less exciting. And then it also became a lot less predictable from a batter standpoint because the physics were not, the ball flight was not going according. Yeah, the math wasn't math. I was going to say that, but us. And so when he had done that, it came from a genuine place, but obviously it was a controversial thing. And coming into Brooke Knows Ball, like, it really is just supposed to be a page where we share our passion for the game, and it's a community of people where no matter what team you're affiliated with, as long as you love baseball, this is a place where you and your family can really enjoy it. And it's been really rewarding because we get to tell those stories and we get to talk about analytics and talk about all of the nerdy things that baseball fans like to talk about too. So it's been really great to see.
Yeah, it's been fun seeing some of the old stories because some of the players you bring out I've not thought of in a while. And then one of my favorite ones I'll own last year. I grew up Cubs fan. I was 10 years old when Ryan Sandberg won the MVP, so he was always my guy. The tribute you did last year after he died was really good.
Thank
really enjoyed
you.
that one. And back to the players' advocacy. So it sounds like you've had players reach out or been in contact with players about some of the stuff you've done. Has it been pretty well received?
I would say, yeah, really, really well received. We get players that we'll talk to at, through Instagram DMs and stuff like that. And we have like full conversations with them. We had current players like Josh Young, who we talked to him, like, he was just like, this is like the type of game, like this is a style of play that I feel like really speaks to me. And so we had like a call with him about that at the end of last season, and he's doing phenomenally this season. It's really exciting to see. But we'll see like current players and we'll see former players that we'll have conversations with, or what we'll also see is like organization heads for specific different teams, or coaches that will reach out to us. And so, we get to have like fun conversations with people that you never would have expected to have a conversation with.
And like past greats who we have conversations with, and we kind of do that, like the Kenny Lofton explanation that we had. And we sit and we talk to Kenny quite a bit, and we sit there and be like, you're actually far better than the game quantifies you to be in this weird system. And then you get players who are like, they're not so deep in the analytics, because I think as
Mm-hmm.
fans we fall really deep into them. And then you can explain to a player, oh, there's a fault in this way of quantifying somebody. You are beyond that. And then you explain it to them, and they sit there and they feel like, they've, I don't know, just to get that type of
Like a
credit
vindication.
when, yeah, that
Yes, yeah.
vindication is it's a really, really big deal for players. And we're working with the Alumni Association now, which connects you
Oh,
to
good.
just amazing, great players from the past. And we just want to kind of keep that up. And then eventually, when it gets to the TV show, um, uh, I always use the Greg Maddux, Andre Dawson story from the Cubs as an
Oh, that's a great one.
example.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, the TV show that we want to make, episodically, we want those types of baseball moments to kind of be the backbone for each episode. So to see a pitcher, a young pitcher who's coming up, and the star player is giving him crap, in the clubhouse, and then that guy gets hit in the head. So that young pitcher's like, you know what, I'm going to hit the next guy to protect my guys, to say you can't go after our star players. Then he gets sent down to the minors. Then he comes back up a couple weeks later, and sure enough, that star player is like writing in all the guys' names in the lineup that day for when Maddox pitched. Like Dawson's like, hey, that guy, he stood up for me. Everybody's playing today. I'm writing the lineup card, because and to get those types of moments where, like,
They're almost Easter egg stories
yeah,
too,
They really
because
are.
yeah, because it like fans as baseball fans, we love a great story. We love and to be able to then have a story to talk to your kids or your grandkids about and say like, no, this actually happened, and
Mm-hmm.
then bringing up the Greg Maddux story like that, and being able to go back into baseball history and say like, this is how a TV series is now relating to actual things that have happened in the past and then up to modern day. Like that's our page are essentially just short stories of what the longer narrative will eventually become with that TV series. So all of these
exactly.
little videos that you see,
Yeah.
hopefully will be integrated into the series. We
That's
got 6
awesome.
seasons planned out. So
That's great. Yeah, because literally on that Greg Maddux story, it was literally that one pitch got him sent down,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
he was, for anybody who's
Benito
listening who
Santiago.
doesn't know the story.
Yeah, he hit Benito Santiago, and Rick Sutcliffe was like, just get through 5 innings, get your
Yes.
win, and then you can hit whoever you want. And he's like, no, I'm going out there in the fourth, and I'm hitting the first batter up, and I'm making a statement, and I don't care if I ever pitch in the major leagues again. And then you do get sent down, but then you come back and you win 350 games, right?
Yes.
Like, just a beautiful
And
story.
doing it in the anti-analytic way. I mean,
Yes.
he just pitched. He
Yeah.
just
yes,
knew where to put the ball. And
yep.
speaking of that, other thing I wanted to go back to, you mentioned earlier some of the advocacy for guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame, and then you mentioned Dale Murphy. I know from my childhood, he's one of the ones that I can't believe has never gotten in.
We actually had done that. The reason we had actually met him in the first place was because we had done a video for a Hall of Fame push for him at the end of last year. And he and his wife had reached out just to say thank you so much for the way that you explained my career and our advocacy for him. Because set aside him being a 2-time MVP and all of these accolades that he had as a player, but just we talk about the Hall of Fame and we use character as a way to um, not put some players in the Hall of Fame, right? Because of steroid-era and everything like that.
Sure.
But we never use character as a positive to get them into the Hall of Fame, which
Right.
is so interesting, right? Where you want the Hall of Fame to be filled with role models, essentially, for young children. You want it to be filled with these players that not only were amazing players on the field, but also people off the field. And that is exactly who Dale Murphy is. And it's one of those things where people say, like, never meet your heroes. If you ever get a chance to meet Dale Murphy, please do. Because he is as
I've always
nice.
heard that.
Yes, he's just as nice of a person that he's always portrayed to be. And so we'd reached out they had reached out saying, if you're ever in town, let us know. We'd love to be able to say hi in person and thank you for it. But then we saw that they had this Dominican trip that they were planning with their foundation, the Dale Murphy Foundation. And so we were like, wait a second, it's going to be at like end of January. We're going to be leaving technically middle of January. I wonder if we can like coincide these trips. And so we reached out and said, hey, can we hop along and just join you guys for some of the different things that you're doing? And they accommodated us so that they could make sure that we were able to join them and, you know, stuff our suitcase on their bus that they were taking. So, yeah, they were just, it's such great human being. But yeah, we're glad to have been part of that push for him, because he just absolutely, we agree, like he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's a wonderful person, but then also he was a fantastic player too.
Yeah. And just when we were down there, like the fact that he's doing these 10-day, week-long pilgrimages down to the Dominican, just because he had played in like one winter ball season for 1 year in like 1978. And he comes back down every single year to try to help in any way that he can. And he brings 30 people, like they make it a big, long trip for everybody that they have in their group. And they're so amazing. They do such amazing work. And he sits there. And another thing that people talk about nowadays is how, like, you'll look at an autograph on a baseball card and it's like 2 motions to like, there's a letter here and a letter, and that's my signature. And he does this beautiful Dale Murphy full-on signature for everybody who asks. Then he puts NL MVP 82, 83 underneath it for every single autograph that he does. And you're just like, and he never gets tired of it.
He won't say no. It's so funny because I was talking to his wife and she's like, I just love this about him, but she's like, also the bus is gonna leave without us, so we gotta go. So he really is just like a player for the fans. He's not for himself at all.
Yeah, love that. And that's part of what comes out in the feed on the page is just it's all about love of the game and telling the story. And when do you have a target for when the documentary is going to come out? Do you know where it's going to come out?
It's right now, so we have the pilot episode and we're working on episodes 2 through 5, and then we'll it's us 2 and then a couple editors that are working on it. We have a baseline of where it's going to be released. But if, let's say, Netflix decides that they want to license it, who am I to say no?
Sure.
But it will be released on YouTube. We have a deal with Atlantic League. They have a channel called Dugout TV. They're interested in it as well as Buzzer, which is a new sports media platform. They haven't done it. They just started up this April, and they haven't done any marketing around it. But it's a lot of big people are involved in that. So those are 3 places that is our baseline for releasing it. But let's, I'm not going to say no if Netflix or Apple or Discovery Channel want to come over. So we haven't done too much of the distribution conversations yet, since we haven't have enough episodes yet. But our goal is to get it released by end of the season, I would say, or postseason.
Great. I'm already looking forward to it. Well, where can people find you guys?
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Those are the 3 places that we're on. Instagram, I would say, is Instagram is our most popular platform. And then TikTok is actually where we had first started. And then YouTube is very new for us. So we've just been posting some of our shorts on there. But eventually we're planning on doing more long form content. But it's at Brooke Knows Ball. That's across all platforms.
Brooke Knows Ball. Well, thank you guys for your time. This has been great. I really appreciate
you so much, Mike.
Coming on. Great.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today. If you like this episode, please drop a rating and review wherever it is you get your podcasts, and share the episode with a friend. Just a few seconds from you helps give me great feedback and helps other Cub fans find the show. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube, all at CubsPS Plus. And check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/bleacherbunch to help support the show. As always, the theme music for this podcast is Prospect Park West by Jerry McCoy. This is Mike Waller, host of the CubsPS Plus podcast. Every day with Cubs baseball or talking about Cubs baseball is a great day. Go Cubs!